Hello and welcome back. We are here with session 4, and we've talked about a lot of real practical things, and we've talked about the why we do children's ministry and so many important things that came before this. But today we get to talk about kids ministry is really fun.
Yep.
And doing family ministries and working with kids and families is actually really fun, and maybe even the most fun that we have at the church.
Yep.
So today we're going to talk about some of that. Like, what are the things that we put together? What are the things that we do to draw families in, to make it enjoyable, to create fellowship? And we've got lots to talk about. So
Yeah. No, I think one of the great things about it is to do things for kids, like they're easily won over with things that we do, whether it be just water balloons or picnic on the lawn, just anything you kind of do. Honestly, when you're involving obviously kids and parents together, our kids are easily won over, and it's easy to do games and things like that. So I think whatever you do can have a big impact for the kids and the families that you're reaching. But I'd say a little bit of the philosophy behind what types of activities to do and even why we do them is just remembering, again, if our goal is in making disciples and wanting to reach kids with the gospel, and we do that best as we reach kids with the gospel, but we know that we need the parents, right? Really what we're after too is the parents and the parent support of things, but also wanting to complement often what parents are doing at home. Or if depending on the home situation, if the parent isn't really involved, isn't really engaged, and we know there's a gospel opportunity there, our greatest inroad is often through the kids to reach the family, reach the home with the gospel and the opportunities that come that way. So as you plan things and think through some things, at least for us on this end, we do often have in mind what would be enjoyable for the family, what would be things that our kids would like to do, that parents would like to do with the kids, and then again, like what are we doing it for, and what's our ultimate goal? And our goal, especially as the church, is we would equip people to do the work of ministry and wanting to reach families and kids with the gospel. It's just providing that opportunity for that conversation and for those moments that we can have together, is often those relational experiences that we can have together to be able to speak into one another's lives and do life together in this way. So as far as some of the fun stuff that we do, and we'll tell you a couple of the highlight things that work for us as a church, just kind of a little bit of the schedule and rotation that we have activity-wise, things that we've done that have bombed in the past, or things that we thought were really good and then maybe just didn't quite take off the way we wanted to, and also too, when do you know is a good time to maybe end something? And that's hard, especially if you have some long established traditions or programs, but maybe they're not working the same way or not getting the same reach or even same leadership involvement. Sometimes you may need to make the hard call in ending something so that you can start fresh or start something new. So I would say for us, maybe some of the highlights that we have on the year, and however you work things out for just the culture of your church and community, I think it's always best to find what the rhythm is within your community, within your church, and obviously nice with kids. There's a built-in kind of season rotation that falls along with school, right, and the quarter system within schools. I would say I probably view things in 3 different seasons. So we've got our start of the year from January to the end of the school year, which is about May for us. So I've got like this late winter, spring season of things that we do. We've got a summer season, and we actually ramp up in the summer and have even more high activity stuff, just because we can with kids not being in school and just freedom with parents, sometimes with schedules. So there's some more activity we actually do during the summer, and then we hit the fall school season and fall into winter there, and plan things accordingly. So I view things in those seasons, if you will, semesters, if you will. And I do work out a calendar. I kind of have this annual calendar that I kind of jot down. Here's what I like to focus on this month. Here's what I plan to do again this month, just so I kind of know where I'm going. And I know not everyone's a planner. I know not everyone's a scheduler like I am. It's just how I think the Lord's gifted me in some sense, but also how I work best. And so I kind of know what's going to happen mostly on the year, what are going to be the main highlights of things. I usually work in about 3-month chunks. And so I know, hey, I'm going to plan this thing this month and this thing next month, and I'm looking forward to this thing in this third month. And then as I work in each month, I'm obviously working on the details and the recruiting and the planning that needs to happen for pulling off certain activities and events. While at the same time, I have a view for what's next and how do I need to communicate and promo what's coming down the pipeline. So it really would be helpful for you even if you throw things on a calendar, like you don't even know what the activity is going to be, but hey, we're going to do this thing in October. We don't know what it is yet. We're not even sure all the details of it, but we want to plan this thing in this season. And of course, being flexible with that, being just holding things with an open hand and what directions you may shift on or not. But I think having things down, having goals as to what you want to do, what you would like to do, and then see if you can pull it off and see what things hit and see what things I'm like, all right, we won't do that again, or we'll try this again. So I'll start off. I'll just start with the beginning of the year and where we come off out of Christmas and January time. Obviously, Christmas is a big season for families. There's just things, it's not that we do so much during Christmas, but there is a lot of family stuff that happens, and kind of coming out of Christmas into January is a little bit of a lull season. And so I don't have a lot of like high activity things I necessarily do in January, but it's a great time. I usually try to make a new call out for recruiting new volunteers. And so we'll do a pitch out for just volunteer onboarding training or information at that time. And so that's a good season to put it in people's minds, and helps me kind of fill in towards the spring here. So we'll do some of those things. I usually will do some sort of family activity. In the past couple years, we've done like a movie night. We've just done maybe some inside kind of game stuff, things just to draw in the kids and families together. And not a big thing, but just something for our families to come together. And I would say probably about that too, and you can tell me how you think it works or not, but I do like doing things where my expectation is that I'm also expecting that the parents are going to be involved as well. So I often, usually when I'm doing it and promoting it, like I'm promoting it to the kids are excited about anything, right? But it's I got to communicate to the parents. But really, what I want the parents to be there, to be engaged, and be involved.
Because we're not just putting a program on to entertain the kids, but there's a higher purpose of drawing those families in. And especially because you said there's some of those kids that the parents might not even really attend.
Yes.
But they'll come to those things. And those are always really successful because parents are always looking for ways to bond with their kids too. So it's giving them opportunities. So they'll engage, and it seems to be really successful when it's the whole family or a father. We've done father-son or father-daughter. Like we mess around with the combination of that. But yeah, having the parents come gives those opportunities kind of for those discussions too that will lend into even getting more volunteers. All of that plays into it.
Yeah, they feel engaged. They feel like that they get to be a part of things. They get to see other families that way. Inevitably, I get the question, a kid whose parents can't make it or kind of off. And I always kind of challenge back a little bit for some of those who are asking that. Great, would you be willing to invite that kid or take this kid along? Would you kind of adopt this kid and bring them, you be the parent for that night? So not excluding anyone, but giving as much kind of wide call out for everyone's welcome, everyone's invited, and but I really like having both parents and kids involved in that way. And
usually in those kind of events, we keep it sort of casual. Like those are our less like intense, heavily planned program events. So it ends up being casual. So then the climate of the whole situation is easy for people to invite friends, for parents to come, grandparents pop in. Usually that's how those ones kind of work. So.
Yeah. Those are often, they get to be kind of your intro, front door things that the kids, of course, enjoy, but then it really is reaching that next level with the parents and getting them in, getting to see the ministry and those aspects of things. We do plan things. I'd say there's times where I have things, because in overseeing with kids ministry, obviously from nursery, preschool, and elementary, there are things that I just can't do with preschoolers and elementary mixed, right? And so we do plan some things, and sometimes some of my more organized activities in one regard probably focus more on the elementary age. I work with some other moms and plan some other things just for a preschool age side of things, and just really at preschool, even younger than that, it's really about the mom, often the parents connecting, moms wanting to connect. And so being intentional about not forgetting them, but helping maybe them plan some things, some park days, some low-key pool days, or just even hosting some things at the church, maybe some gym playing time, or playing on our playground or something like that, where moms can come and just and bring their kids and kind of feel safe, but also connect with other moms. And so sometimes thinking those age groups of, hey, what's something we could do for this group, or what's something that we could do for that group as well. So other fun things that we've done as well too, actually did a kind of an old school style of a pine car derby. We had an old Awana racetrack from years ago, and I hung on to it. I didn't get rid of it, and I probably should have, but I did it, and all of a sudden I was like, hey, I need to do this. So we did something that was great for fathers. I had a lot of dads participate in that one with their kids, and they got the kits, and they made the cars, and then we did a big race day together and stuff, and it was fun. And my whole purpose behind that one really was to engage dads with their kids on that activity, and they loved it, and they asked for it. Hey, and I always know it's good. When can we do this again, right? And so I'm like, all right, great. I'll chalk that one up, and we'll plan for that one again. But other fun things to do, and I think depending on maybe where your location is, and weather is always a big factor. I'll just say in Southern California, we have weather that lends towards things outdoors all the time. I mean, really, the only factors that factor for us is how windy it's going to be, and if we get rain, we don't complain because we need the rain. So that's why, and we could move indoors. But that sometimes your locale can be a factor as to what you're planning and when. So we do tend to plan things a lot more outdoors. We do have a pretty nice lawn and field where we can do activities on, but we've also done activities at other parks and just nearby areas. Even schools, if there's a local school, whether public school or private school, and if you could make the request, and could you use their soccer field? Could you use maybe their little league field or something like that you could do? Because I did like a Father's Day kickball tournament, and so we used our local school, and they had a little a baseball field there, and we set up and did and that was great because we had parents and kids in that one, and we just did a big round robin kickball tournament, and we ended it with a barbecue. And so just, again, activities like that that could engage families that way. And we'll plan those throughout the year. We have another one upcoming where we'll do like a Memorial Day barbecue. And at times I've done it at a local park, and I've done a camp out with it, which is super fun, and people love that one. This year I'll do a little bit different. We'll do a camp out. I'll do activities on our lawn. And then we have a outdoor movie setup system. And so there's a local business that actually does that. So I hire them to come in, and they set up an outdoor screen and the speakers and all that kind of stuff. So we'll do like a late evening, because the next day is a holiday, and so we'll do like a late night barbecue and game activities on the lawn, and then outdoor movie night, and it's a blast. We've also done indoor movie. Our local theater, one of our local theaters, would rent out to nonprofit groups, and so we would book a theater, and then it cost us, really just the price of whatever we needed to pay for the fee for the movie, and then they got all the money for the concessions, which was great. So it was a win for us. It wasn't a totally free event, but it was really cheap to do, and we showed a fun kid-friendly movie in the local theater, and it was a pretty fun win that way. So just those types of things that you think of that you think your families would enjoy, and oftentimes we just sit down and think like, what would we like to do with our kids? And honestly, when I meet with parents or I talk with staff or just volunteers, I just kind of ask them, what do you guys want to do? And one year I had a bunch of dads that are super into mountain biking and love doing that. Like, hey, could we do a bike day? Great. And so we had some great biking trails and parks nearby us. And so a bunch of my dads organized. And so all the kids brought their bikes, and it wasn't hard mountain biking at all. It was just kind of a fun off-road trail that we got to take and stuff. And we did that for a couple hours, and it brought in so many others. It brought in so many of the kids, but it also brought in so many of the parents on those things too. So those are fun things I think to think of that you can plan to do. But I would say this with kids ministry, and you've known it as we've talked through it. Like there's a lot of administration that needs to be. There's a lot more organization that needs to happen. And it's funny, we talk with our church and even just the culture of our church a little bit. We kind of say we're not really a highly programmatic church. We don't have a lot of just program ministry structures for singles of this age, or men only and always do these things, or women only do these things. And we don't do a lot of segregated things. We have men's Bible studies and women's Bible studies. We have a college group of things as well, but we don't overly program a lot of things in our church. We just as a church really do value relationships, and we do things, and maybe it's a word that gets overused, but we do tend for things organically and just happen, and relationships to happen that way. And so just as our church culture is, we don't do that. However, though, had plenty of conversations with our senior pastor, and he's often said to me, but if there's an area that needs program, that needs organization and structure, it's often going to be our youth ministry, student ministry, down to our kids ministry. And so there is an aspect where you can't just, with kids ministry stuff, just think things are going to happen, or just hope that they happen, or just, we'll see how this one goes. Like it does take planning and organization, and it is good to have some good program things on the year that draws people in, but also just engages at a different level with people they're serving. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk a little bit about our unique summer program of things. Mm-hmm. Most times in the summer, a lot of churches host a 1-week VBS program, camp, right? And if your community is like our community, and we do have several churches around, and all the churches pick their weeks that they do their VBS camp of things and stuff. And then, of course, and we have it in our church and others too, like then what do people do? And it's kind of like their kids' summer camp, right? And so for elementary, and so kids do, they do the week's worth of VBS all around town, right? And nothing wrong with that. I think it's a lot of fun for the kids. They get to know families as well too. I think VBS has changed throughout the years as well, and it's a great outreach tool, but a lot of times it can be the in-reach as well with churches and families. We made a pretty conscious decision a number of years back not to do the week-long VBS program anymore, but instead we actually did something that's actually more church holistic that we call our Renew series, our Renew nights, and those are something that we do on some Sunday evenings. How would you describe those?
Well, I was just going to say, you talk about taking the temperature sort of what like meets the needs of your community at the time. And so this is very specific to just like that we're the only ones in our area that are doing it this way. And so it offers something unique. And so what's exciting is while the kids are doing like a VBS program, and essentially it is a VBS. Yep. We actually, our program is a VBS curriculum that we do 4 nights in July, sometimes spilling into August, but it's always 4 Sunday nights. At the same time, we bring in really dynamic speakers for the adults.
Yes.
And so what's unique about it is so often moms are dropping off their kids at VBS, and it's when they can get stuff done during the day or whatever it is. And there's plenty of those happening in our area. So what we are offering is on Sunday nights, the kids are going and doing a VBS program, and it's just once a week. And the parents at the same time are being fed and discipled and shepherded and all those things. So I've never seen a church do it before like us. So it's super unique. But that's what's so special is you can figure out in your area how to meet the needs of the community. And in our area, that was something that we could offer that was unique. We have a huge building too, so we could invite lots of people from our community to come to that. So
yeah, and I'll say this, that was a top-down decision as far as pastors and elders and staff that we had made that commitment to and had that kind of vision together, if you will, that, hey, we're going to do these unique nights because we don't have a Sunday evening service. So for our church, we don't have a Sunday evening service, so we have Sunday nights open. We picked the summertime because we recognize, too, summertime, a lot of families are in and out on vacation, things like that. And we thought, hey, this is a good opportunity where people could come in for 1 week, several weeks, or however it fits, and not really miss a beat a little bit to a certain degree, but can just engage in. We've done it in the past where we actually hosted dinner. So we barbecued, or we brought in pizza. We rented the In-N-Out truck and sold tickets for that. So there's some things where we've done, it was like a big family dinner at the front end. And again, we could do that outside on our lawn. And then the adults would go in for the evening worship session, and then the kids would go off for our VBS program of things. So anyways, that was something that was a holistic church decision. That may not be something your church or staff buys off on. But there are some things maybe just a little outside the box to think of. And sometimes you feel like you're getting kind of stale doing it the same way. It's okay. Like it's okay to maybe just try something a little bit different. And it doesn't have to be maybe super drastic, but maybe you do change the timing of it, maybe change the frequency of it. And so ours is unique, where instead of we do VBS 1 week and then it's over, right? You do all that prep work, do it 1 week. We do it in one sense over a month, right? Mm-hmm. So even though we're doing it once a week, it's over a month. And I'll just say by the end of that month, we're ready for it to be over too. Like it feels like it's dragging on kind of long, right? But it gives something that our kids look forward to every week. It kind of extends our summer involvement a little bit. Now with that program side of things, and those of you guys that run programs like this, you know that there's another level of recruiting, right? There's another level of volunteers that you ask for that and task for that. And so then we have to do a separate recruiting for that. I do have a lot of families that still help in. It's actually been kind of nice on a volunteer side where people can say, hey, I can't commit the whole summer, but I can do these 2 Sunday nights. And so I have them head up crafts, those 2 Sunday nights, or lead the games, or maybe they work with these groups and jump in. But I also got a lot of people say, hey, I'm here all summer. I can be there every Sunday night, and they're all in. And so I have them be our game leader or be our music person or whatever it may be. So I'm still recruiting for the same needs, but sometimes I can also bring in a lot more people and get a lot more people at least engaged with maybe the program and what we're doing. It's been a great onboarding tool for a lot of families that are new to the church. They want to be involved. They don't really know where can they practically serve. And often with their kids, they're like, hey, well, what do you need? I'm like, great, I need someone in this preschool room, doing this little program with them. And so they start there, and they're like, hey, I'd like to start serving regularly. And then they get to be involved that way. So that's been pretty helpful. I will say actually with our program as well, because of the way that functions for our church with the adult session and our guest speakers and testimonies and things like that, and then we run this specific kids program, that leaves our student ministry a little bit in limbo. So we don't do anything specific junior high and high school on those Sunday nights for them. They actually do their midweek thing on Wednesday nights, and they even do a different routine in the summer. They're meeting different places, they're doing different homes, just different than the normal school year is and stuff. So that actually gives opportunity where I actually utilize a lot of students to help run our Sunday nights. And we've been doing it long enough now, which is pretty fun, where so many of our kids that grew up doing the program, they're really eager and excited to start serving back in it. And so they right away, when they enter 7th grade, they want to start helping. So you start in the preschool, and then you get high school, you can help with the elementary. And it's really neat to see a lot of our kids and our students who grow up through the years and have leadership opportunities. And this is a place to serve, and it's a good, safe place in one regard. And it's where they get to learn what it is. And again, like I have kind of like adult overseers with them, right? So they're learning and they're engaging, those types of things. But it's been a great way to get our students, junior high and high school students, still actively involved in serving in something that they love, something that they enjoy, something that they're engaged in, and getting to have those continued relationship with the kids that they know throughout the year as well. And so we've enjoyed that type of relationship with it.
And the students, it's like for them, it's an extension of the excitement that they've had coming out of summer camp and stuff. There's a lot of relationships that happen, but it's also like that training up in ministry and doing ministry as a family. It's another component of what you've talked about being so important in family ministries, is that we are families kind of ministering in the church together. And so that's a big one. Yeah. I noticed that with my daughter this last year. It was her first one. And it was a big deal kind of pouring into the rest of the year and the excitement to serve and all that. So I think that that's a really, I do feel, I know I'm biased. That's a very unique, special thing that we do. And I do love that we thought outside the box.
Yeah.
To like make it work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So and obviously with that, it's a lot of planning. We don't do the dinners on the front end anymore. We just start off right away. Parents drop off their kids, and then they go into their session, and then our kids, we run our program that night. And then actually, and just so you know how it even works too, on the back end, the parents in before the kids program is done. And that was intentional because now on the back end, what we decided to capture was like dessert afterwards for the adults. So they do their, hour and a half, 75, 90-minute session together. And then they actually have just some time without the kids for fellowship and hangout. And so we do special desserts that night. And so they hang out on our patio and people are out. And then later, when the kids program is done, they'll come up and get their kids. And then afterwards too, then everyone's just hanging out. They're hanging out at the church. They're still playing, things like that. I'm cleaning up, but it's part of what it does, right? And so we've done that to really create, again, this kind of community family relationship side of things of just older and younger together. I love it. I've got one of our ladies who served in different ministries for a long time. She's in her 70s now. She jumped in with me last year helping lead one, and she's always just had a heart for discipleship for young girls. And so she jumped in with us on our summer stuff, and she loved it so much that she's back in it again. She would always tell me though, like how much she needed to take a nap before and afterwards to be ready for those nights, but not slowing her down. So I appreciate those saints who are willing to jump in that way. Now with that's obviously unique to our summer. It's a big buildup. It takes up a lot of our time. We'll do some other, kind of activities in there as well. Not too much because that's the main focus of things. Our youth group is doing a lot of high activity. Their summer camp as well, working on those things. But that gives a good focus for our church. And then we head into the fall for the school year. We have had for a lot of years, and maybe your church does this or considers it or not. We've had a pretty neat history. It predates me as well. We've done a church kind of family camp, family retreat, and the children's pastor before me, when he came on, he had connected with another church and gentleman, and they had set up a unique place at a camp, and so we have this annual family camp, family retreat. It's changed the last couple of years, just with some circumstances and timing and even availability. So I have kind of at the end of summer a family retreat, and so we go to a local Christian camp, and it's kind of just camp for families, really what it is. We just do a few nights of it. I even have like a day option because we're close enough where families can come. So we stay in cabins, do the cafeteria food. We've got a pool or a lake, depending on what camp center we use. I do some teaching sessions in the morning. We do evening bonfire times together. And it's just been a fun way to kind of close out the summer. And by this time, school's already started. We start pretty early in August. But so it's just a transition away from summer to the fall. Not everyone comes. It's not even for everybody, I should say. Not everyone kind of likes the rustic style of things, but that's okay. But there is kind of a niche there a little bit. It's been a great opportunity for people even new to the church just to get to know other families. And it's not just, and I'll say this, I call it family retreat. But it's not just for our kids ministry families. Like I advertise it to the whole church. So I got older couples that come. I got some singles that will come and get a cabin together and things like that, or do tents at the camp as well. And so it's kind of a church family retreat. What it is, it does gear a little more to our kids families and some of the activities we do. But it's been something that's just I inherited, and then I even debated if I was going to continue it or not, but I had a good opportunity to transition some things, and I had good interest still, and so I'll continue that for as long as I have interest with it, and it kind of meets that opportunity. And so it's just something that we do as a church. I know some churches do different campouts and things like that, but anytime you get away, it's just great. There's cost to consider in there as well, so some it just prices out. Some would pay a lot more for a lot nicer place, but I'm like, that's what we're going to do. So there's just those things that, again, just engaging the family that way. So I'll talk about a little bit what we look towards the fall, kind of how the school year runs and just some of the activities that we've done in there. And then also, how do you know when's the right time to transition out of something as well? So when we go into the school year in the fall, that's kind of where our mode switches a little bit. Our curriculum often takes a little bit that turn. Maybe it's a good turning point. You start the New Testament or start the Old Testament, just depending on where you're at in the season of things. And we get in our regular routine and flow again as far as Sundays that take place. We have had several different midweek ministries throughout the year. Our longest standing ones, we had an Awana ministry for a number of years. Had a faithful couple who started it and led it for many years. They were also the ones who helped me actually end it. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment as well. And if you run a midweek ministry, amen. I mean, fantastic. I think like any opportunities that we can continue to have to reach our kids, to engage our families, something that our kids look forward to. We know there's a lot that competes, obviously, for time and attention, and it's always been the deal, and it's always going to get harder, right? And there are some times when we put something out, there is a little bit of expectation. Hey, if the church is putting this on, this must be something important to do, right? So as you plan things and do things, just have in consideration what message you're sending. And so that way you're not haphazard in what you're throwing out there or putting out there. Or if you're doing something weekly that's going to take a lot of administration time and recruiting, it's going to suck up a lot of your time, right? And so if that's a high priority and your church has a high priority of that, then you need to give it attention to that, right? We found, and I'll be honest, we found with our Awana ministry over the years, just the family dynamic had changed. And I was a kid who grew up in the Awana midweek program and went through and didn't finish all the way. My church didn't have it at my high school years, and that was fine. But I'm very familiar with it, led it at another church as well. And when I came here, was actively engaged with our leaders and our volunteers in that way. For us, we had decided to end that ministry a number of years back, and that wasn't easy. It was very hard, and I know a lot of people were hurt by that as well too. A couple of the main reasons, and I say this more out of principles of how do you know when it's time to maybe end something, and move on to something else. Number one is it accomplishing the goal it originally set out to do, right? And I think what was hard, and I only speak of this in terms of our church, because I think there are other churches and other communities that are still doing a lot of these things really well. But Awana is meant to be an outreach, an evangelistic tool and outreach of midweek for your community, for your families in the week, right? And you are dependent upon your church volunteers to help run that and minister that, right, as well too. We found over the years that our Awana program had become less of an outward ministry outreach. We were still having a lot of kids come. We were still getting visitors as well. But what we did notice that it was a very in-reach program of some things. And so we weren't getting the unchurched kids, the non-church kids. We were getting a lot of church kids who also grew up in the Awana ministry that were then just kind of perpetuating within, right? And here's the thing I'd say, like I learned all my scripture verses from Awana. Like a lot of things that I still know today was the scripture memory from Awana. And so there's a deep-seated part in my heart and mind where here's a lot of things that I learned. But we evaluated things. Is it accomplishing original goal? And we were beginning to evaluate as a church that we don't think it's accomplishing what it originally set out to be and who we were ministering to at that time. But that wasn't reason enough to necessarily end it. So the next thing that we worked through was what about leadership? What about leadership development and recruiting and volunteers? And what I did find within our ministry is that my leadership was aging, and it wasn't being replaced with younger upcoming leaders and families as well. And so as my main leaders were getting in closer to their retirement years, we didn't have anyone to hand it off to. And there was ones that came up that we talked about or maybe potential, and then just for different circumstances, that person didn't pan out or moved away and things like that. But a lot of my volunteers that were working in there too were also getting older and just were coming to the place where like, hey, we can't do this the same way we did anymore. And they were kind of asking for a break or needed a time out of some things. And that was hard. And I'm trying to help recruit a little bit, and you get some new people that come in, but they wouldn't stay, or they didn't catch quite the same mission or vision of it, and so they wouldn't stay leading on. And so that was hard. I wasn't having leadership to help come in and replace and replenish along the way. And then the other thing that I saw as well too, and this was probably the harder side of some things, and this has always been a pretty high alert for me and stuff, even when I took over children's ministry on Sunday mornings too, was sometimes you'll have people very committed to one specific thing, but not the church as a whole, right? So I remember early on when I took over children's ministry for Sunday mornings, I had this very actually dear couple who were very faithful, and they would serve in a kids class every Sunday, but they never went to service. At least one of the spouses never did, and the other spouse was hit or miss with it. And I remember having conversations with them about why they weren't engaged with the rest of the body and the rest of the church body, and where were they getting fellowship within the church? Were they engaged in a Bible study? Were they engaged with an adult midweek group type of thing? And I realized that their identity within the church was just that Sunday school class. And so that was a hard thing to be able to have that conversation, and then to actually start to back them out of serving as much as they were. And I wanted to communicate to them, I'm going to only have you serve, this week or these weeks, with the expectation that you're going to be in service the other weeks. And eventually they kind of just pulled out altogether. And that was a little bit of a sad revelation to me of who I thought maybe they were as far as their view of the church, their involvement of the church, and realizing that wasn't there. I was seeing that same thing happen on our Awana side, our Awana ministry, where I had leaders that were just there on Wednesday night, and they were, at best, they were maybe 25% at and the rest of the church body. And it kind of revealed too, when we even ended our Awana program at our church, that those people just stopped coming to church altogether. And so that was, again, those are hard things. That's not the normal case of things, but they are things to reveal, and they're just things to be aware of. And just, I think, again, it comes back to, what's your view of the church? What do you want your people to have in regards to a view of the church? What do you want your kids to understand about the view of church as well? And if you're just doing high program things and they're coming and building up those programs, great. But then when they're done, or they're not part of that program anymore, they're nowhere to be found, then we're missing something, right? We're missing something about what is the purpose of the church. It's to make disciples. It's to equip the saints to do the work of service. And we want to model that. We want our leaders and our volunteers to model that with our kids. And so as our kids grow, we want them to see that, but also to be engaged that way, in that manner as well. And so I'll just say that was a very, and we did that over a 3-year period. It wasn't something that we pulled the rug out. We talked about along the way, talked with leadership. We tried to work on a transition of things. And then in the end, we made the call and ended that program. And it was still hard either way. But I think for our church, it was the right call at that time. Now, in that vein of things, I wanted to know, okay, if I'm going to take something away, and especially if you're going to change something in your church, and something that's been a long-standing tradition, that's very personal for a lot of people, it's going to be hard, because if you're taking this away from me, right, and oftentimes it is their identity, what are you going to replace it with? And sometimes the answer is we don't replace it with anything. But other times, I think the overall goal is good, or maybe the overall purpose, but maybe you need to reshape it and retool it. And so that was a little bit, if we were ending this program of things, what were we going to do differently? And so we did try something, and we did do something different, and it went for about a year and a half. It almost would have gone 2 years. We hit a wall with just kind of some drop off a little bit, and then pandemic and all that kind of stuff. But it's something that we had replaced with and tried, and it's not something I'm opposed to actually going back to again. But part of what it was trying to engage the whole family, and not just a drop off night, but a whole family thing. So we called it the Big Story Night, and it went well the first year.
It went well. Again, but it's like also remembering that, figuring out, like you said, to kind of know when something's really not hitting the mark with our with our families or whatever. And at some point it was like we're struggling to get people to come. We're struggling to get mostly volunteers was the issue. And so it was good. And so we just decided to pause it for a while, and we haven't started back up yet. Yep. But it's refreshing to try something and not to feel defeated or feel like it was a failure. Yeah. It was a success, and it ministered for the time that it was. And it wasn't like Awana where it went on for like so many years, but it was a different sort of thing.
Yeah. And in that idea, we did, instead of every week, we did only so many weeks out of the semester. So we did it once a month. We even talked about shifting it a little bit. I invited parents to come in, so we had like a worship time together. There was like a big lesson, and then we would break up the kids and with the parents, and there was a small group discussion time, and usually there was a craft or a game. So it's kind of the same themes and same ideas that a lot of these kids programs work in this way, same elements. We just did it in a different format and a different way. And the first year we felt it went pretty good high participation. I had talked with a lot of parents beforehand. If we were ending one thing, what was something that's important to you? And so that was a lot of the feedback I got, and so I kind of put those things together. It was because it was different, it was hard for people to envision a little bit, and so I learned from there like how I need to communicate things differently or more, or even more specific than maybe I'm comfortable with, just so people can see it. But once people got there, they were seeing and being part of it. And then it didn't quite take the turn the same way the next year. And so we were okay to say goodbye to that one, and maybe retool it for later. And we're still holding that one with an open hand as well too. But in the meantime, what we did it just even more recently as well too. We started doing more specific. And my idea, even with these types of things, again, is engaging parent and kid, right? And so we did a very specific mom-daughter event. So we had kind of a craft day, and then the idea is like to do a devotional time with that, and something that engaged moms and daughters. And then I did a dad-son all-out Nerf war at our church inside our main sanctuary, outside, things like that. And I did a devotional time with them. And then in the fall and winter, we do a big family Christmas party. And so after church one Sunday, bring everyone in, and we do treats and do donuts and hot chocolate bar. And then we do a bunch of just fun Christmas games. We sing Christmas carols together. And so those are just some things that we did on that end. So again, just finding out what kind of works, for your church and for your family. And I'll just say the best way to know is to sit down and talk with individual families. It's easy to talk with the ones who are already bought in, who love everything that you do, or willing to jump in. It's another thing sometimes to sit down with families or parents that are a little more difficult, a little more skeptical, a little more uncertain, maybe kind of question a little bit of everything you do. And I just kind of ask the question, what would be important to you, or what is important to you? What would minister? Actually, my question I got: what would minister your family best? And so oftentimes that seems to trigger the conversation about really just resources and opportunity and conversation to have about parenting and marriage and things that related to our kids, and just asking and being willing to have families over or go to lunch with. I try to go to lunch with as many dads as I have opportunity to, and just to hear what's the relationship dynamic in the home. And then oftentimes I'll plan things or build things according to what I feel like our families are engaged in at that time, and what can I get buy-in as well too. And so those are just things that you just got to do the gritty work on, having those conversations, and then getting to come in and be a part of it. I didn't share this, but when I did that Pine Car Derby night or afternoon is what it was, and so I had like a prep day, and so all the dads came in and we cut the cars and sanded them, and they were making it all together. I had lined up several parents and dads to help host it and MC it and do the weighing in and run all those types of things. And then it just so happened I actually got really sick that day. And I totally missed the event. And I was on the phone a little bit, texting as I'm throwing up, and just talking to a few others. And so I never made it to that event at all. But the great thing about that is I had already worked with and planned and prepared so many of the other parents and dads who just stepped in and took it and ran it, and I never even had to worry about it, actually. And even after that, still got the great feedback, like, this was great, let's do it again. And I think even a part of that too sometimes, and I'm not advocating don't show up to your own event, always show up to your events, right? But even with that too, what happens is there's an ownership element that takes place, and when they get it and buy into it and see it and believe it, then they want to do it and will do it better or do it differently next time. And so those are just ways of working with parents and volunteers and engaging those things. Well, those are all the major activities. What things that we...
Well, we have just one time a year.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We do, which kind of an event that has no real gospel presentation purpose.
Yes.
It's truly just to get people on our campus, to have our faces and names be known in the community, provide a safe space, and that's our trunk or treat.
Yep.
And that is something that the community has come to expect from us. We offer just a really fun, safe night for families to come in, and we will get people that we've never seen before, lots and lots of people. We usually have food trucks, and obviously moms and dads are looking for a safe place for their kids to trick or treat. And so, yeah, we just get a ton of people, a lot of school families, a lot of church families, and then just a lot of community families. And that's really important in its own way.
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about why you think that's important.
Yeah, no, there are those things. It's easy to build up a big event and have a lot come, right? And you just, again, I got to ask yourself, what's the purpose of this? What am I trying to accomplish? And so as many of these activities I've talked about, obviously they're geared for our families within the church, are wanting to reach in and draw in more that way and reaching friends and neighbors that way. And so, but we do have this intentional community-wide event that we host, and we do have the property and space for it type of thing. Our church has been in the community going on 60 years now, so we know that we have a pretty big footprint in our community as well. And it really didn't start out this way in one sense. For a long time, we had done like just kind of a local really just kind of fall harvest type of thing and stuff, and bring in the bounce houses and type of thing. And it really reached as far as our church did, and then just, some spilled over to some school families as well too. We switched and did the trunk or treat. If you're not familiar with a trunk or treat, look it up. It's easy. It's a pretty fun thing to do. But it really has turned into this community outreach that our whole church is involved and engaged in. Again, this is sometimes a top leadership conversation, at least to appeal to or approach or maybe persuade a little bit. And so we usually do an announcement in church, and it's the few times a year that we are really goofy, and she doesn't like doing it. My wife doesn't like doing it. We do it all the time. I'll do it. I'll get my intern to come and do with me and stuff. So we'll dress up or something like that. Or I actually get the students to also, I have my kids also do the announcement as well. But we make a big announcement. I do a sign up. So families within our church are signing up to bring their car. Hosts, they decorate their car. They'll bring candy. I'll buy extra candy. And basically it's trick-or-treating in our parking lot, right? And then we have on our field there, so I will do some games or stuff on the field. The last couple times we've been bringing in, just because they're convenient this way, we've brought in some food trucks, ice cream trucks. There's a local restaurant that comes and barbecues, and so we sell food that way, which is nice, so we kind of support the local community. And we just run it for 2 hours. And for 2 hours, our church lot is filled with close to 1,000 people. So now we have a pretty good sized community. It's grown throughout the years. So it didn't start out that way for sure, but now we're in the 600 plus thousand, type of people. And we always do it the Sunday evening before Halloween. So when it falls on Halloween night, we did it then as well too, but then we ended early enough so people could still go out, go trick-or-treating if they like to do that. You may have different perspectives. You may have different approaches, even what you think about something like Halloween and things like that. We've had those conversations before, just the theological, biblical stuff, or what are we promoting here? What are we advocating? And you do need to consider maybe just where your church stance is on some things like this. Maybe you don't call it, we don't relate it to trick-or-treating or anything like that. Maybe you do call it the fall harvest, fall party or something like that. Our approach is, obviously, we're not promoting anything that we wouldn't agree with and wouldn't want to support. We are then viewing it as an opportunity just to introduce our community to our church campus, to really be good host. I think that's one thing we've talked about a lot. Anytime we host something, we want to be good host. We want to host well. We want people to be comfortable in coming to our church, because it's just the front door thing, right? It's just the front door thing for people to step onto our campus. And the number of people that I hear say, hey, my first introduction to your church was coming to your trunk or treat event with my preschooler. Amen and amen, right? And then it leads towards opportunities of conversation. So we just do it, and it's just a 2-hour thing, and everyone goes in a big loop, and then we shut it down, and everyone cleans up and takes it home. And actually, it's kind of the easiest event would do, because everyone else does all the work to set up and things like that. So we just do all the prep work beforehand, clean up on the back end, and then it's done. But something like that this reaches out and speaks to your community is a great opportunity. So
yeah, and that's the only one we really do like that.
Yep.
So if we can do it well and focus on that.
Yeah.
And you kind of covered everything that we do, all the different ideas, and makes me excited for summer.
Yeah, I know. As we look towards summer, we gear up for those things. Last thing I'd say about this, as far as evaluation, right? It's always arbitrary a little bit as to how long you do something or run some things. And we had this conversation with our summer series and even the trunk or treat. I picked this up off someone else one time, but I always kind of look at things in terms of 3 months, 3 years type of thing, and evaluate it. And if it hits well enough, okay, let's do this the next year, right? And if it's still hitting the right tone, okay, let's do it another year. How do we make it, sharpen it, make it better? And then after the 3rd year, let's evaluate here and see is the interest in it waning? Is it, just kind of not the right thing anymore type of stuff? And just, I think sometimes being willing to let go of something. And the hardest one is when it's been pretty precious to you as well, and you've built it and you've developed it, and all of a sudden it's just not hitting the right notes anymore, and either handing that off or just saying, okay, maybe this is it. So we do, as far as our church culture goes in regards to our staff and pastorally and elder-wise, we're constantly evaluating what we do and why we do it. And not always with judgment or criticism, but just more that critical thinking side of things. And okay, is this still playing out? And so the fact that we've had a couple things perpetually go on this way, like our summer series, the way that we do it, our trunk or treat, the way that we do it, just again, each year I'm like, maybe this is the year that this is the last year we do it type of thing. And then it picks up steam and new people are involved and engaged, and everyone comes away like, that's great. We look forward to this every year. That was really refreshing. And it's like, all right, we're going to do it again for another year. But it also takes a lot of work. And sometimes there's some things that everyone loves and wants you to do, and you just don't have the manpower to pull it off. There was a preschool program I used to, that I kind of inherited and then ran for a while. It was like an open mom gym program of things, and it had more throughout the years, a mom's Bible study, and then like a strategic playtime and stuff, and then it kind of developed a little bit more as just an open mom time together. And I had our preschool director come in, and she would do a circle time with the kids and stuff. And the preschool moms loved it and participated with it. But what happened is over the years, I just had less and less moms that were willing to help run and make it happen. And so I would think it was the last year, and it was me and my maintenance guy doing all the work of setting everything up. And I just thought, no. And I had put the call out, I put the peel out. I tried to recruit some moms from the past. I tried to get new moms in, and it kind of just wasn't the thing anymore, right? And so it was funny, even when I told them this was the last season and we weren't going to do it anymore, or I would get back to them about if we were going to anymore. I was like, oh, we were willing to do it. And then when I'd ask, hey, great, are you willing to step in and help with this? I don't think I can commit to that. And what was great is it answered the question for them. Like, hey, sometimes some of these things you do that everyone loves, but you just can't keep doing it if you don't have the support for it. And so it is putting it back on that sometimes. And so when they say, you're right, I really can't commit to this, then it answers the question for you, like, okay, thanks. Mm-hmm. I said, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it because I just don't have enough help and support. And I don't ever do those things and trying to make people feel guilty. I don't think I made people feel guilty. I don't know. Like, people don't say things to me a lot of the times, maybe just because I'm a pastor. They'll tell her things, or they tell my wife things. They don't tell me things. So I don't know if maybe they just don't want to hurt my feelings or type of thing. Okay. Fair. I really, like, if you need to step off or step away, do it. Like, I don't want to end on bad terms. I don't want you to make you feel like you're strong-armed into doing these things or have to do these things. Like, hey, step away, or no, I'm not gonna hold you over a barrel on this or anything like that. So, but that is hard. It's hard to do. But then also it's good reflective. Like, if it's something that's has interest in going and people want to go and you kind of want to go too, and then maybe you got to ask the question, am I doing what I need to do to recruit and to train up and to pass on to the next generation of things? And so it can be very self-evaluative that way of, man, what are the things that I need to let go of? How do I need to give ministry away? That's something we do talk about as our staff often. How do you give ministry away? And it's hard when it's yours and you love it and you do it best. But at some point in time, you just can't do all of it, and nor should you do all of it. And you just can't be in control of all of it. And you need to be willing to let others take the reins a bit and do it, and maybe even do it differently, and actually not even do it as well as you would do it. I struggle the most with that, just because you do things for a long time and you know how it should look and how it should go. And you see someone doing it, you're like, oh man, but how can you come alongside? How can you help and assist? How can you not micromanage things, but how can you give right support and mentorship along the way? And so giving ministry away is something that we talk about often. And you can't just, do that haphazardly, especially with kids. People are entrusting you with your children. There's certain protocols and standards that we do need to have in releasing our kids. I don't have seventh graders running a whole, VBS night for me type of thing and stuff. Like, I'm always putting older and younger together, not being unwise about those things, but right time, actively recruiting and asking and engaging people and giving ministry away and letting them do it and being okay when it doesn't meet your expectations. And walking along those things. So anyways, we hope those are helpful things for you. We hope that they would be tools that you would use. Again, a lot of principle things, just because we don't know your context and your community and your area. And so we don't want to say hard and fast, this is what you always have to do or need to do. But here are things that you should aim for and should maybe at least consider in planning and moving forward, and what would hit right for your church and your community of things.
That's right. Thanks for letting us into your TVs.
Yeah. We will say it's been kind of funny different for us to do this. This is our first opportunity to be able to do something like this and train this. And so we don't know who you are, and now you've gotten to know us as well too. And so, Lord willing, one day we'll meet you in heaven and maybe introduce yourself to us type of thing. But those are things that we've learned. And so we appreciate it. You listening and taking this course, and we hope that it's beneficial for you as you move forward in your ministry. So may the Lord bless you in all these things.